My name is Deborah Frieze. I am co-author with Meg Wheatley of the book Walk Out, Walk On, A Learning Journey into Communities Daring to Live the Future Now, which is a story about the patterns and practices of leaders who are stepping out into the world to create healthy and resilient communities. And these leaders are people that we know through our work at the Berkana Institute, which was founded by my co-author Meg in 1992, to help us understand how do we think about a form of leadership that works with living systems, that works with emergence, that works with self-organizing. And it's a very different model from the conventional model of leadership. And so this book chronicles people who are out there leading with self-organizing, with emergence, and with authenticity. And that's actually one of the reasons that I am very, very honored to participate in this project, which is the way that we learn about leadership, I believe, is by listening to each other's stories, having each of us share how we're acting in the world, what we're seeing, what we're learning about ourselves and others, and that when we share these stories from the heart, we find our way into experimenting with different models. And this experimentation is really, really critical today. The ways that we've learned how to be leaders in the world from organizational life aren't serving us as much as they could, and they certainly aren't serving community. So today, the opportunity to share my perspective and what I've learned from many people around the world who are experimenting with being an authentic leader and working with their hearts open in the world is a privilege to share. So I've chosen to explore a question around the kind of archetypes that we might learn from in ushering forth a new world. And so I'm going to offer 3 archetypes that I've noticed in the world and I've been exploring in my own leadership. And the first one is really the one that we spoke to in the book. It's about the pioneer, the person who steps forward to walk a path where they've never been before, to be on uncharted territory, to use a phrase that I learned from Berkana. It's called start anywhere, follow it everywhere. Meg shared that with me when I first met her, and it struck me very, very deeply, which is a difference from the notion that we're supposed to know where we're going and create our 10-year plan and our roadmap and follow it, versus the pioneer who says, I have no idea what's ahead. I am in uncertain territory. I'm going to take the first step. The step that's right in front of me is the only one that I know. I'm going to take that. I'm going to pause. I'm going to look around, and I'm going to see where to go next. So the notion of the archetype of the pioneer as walking the path, making it as they walk, as we've heard from many, and being willing to be in the fear of the isolation and the loneliness of charting land in front of you that no one has trod on before. So the pioneer is the first archetype. The second archetype is my favorite. Right now I'm thinking about it a lot. It's the jester. And the notion of the jester is the idea, there's 2 parts of that. One idea is the idea of playing to change the world instead of working to change the world. Many of us in the social sector, but leaders all over, seem to think that if we could just work harder, faster, longer hours, do more, that maybe we would have the breakthroughs that we're looking for. And I learned from my friends in Brazil, it's a story that we share in the book, the audacity of saying, what if we played to change the world? What if we didn't have to suffer? What if we could use the dynamics of games and joy and freedom and surprise? So that's one part of the jester. But there's another part of the jester that I think is even more significant today, which is the jester who speaks truth below the radar. Right? The king can't quite, the jester's speaking the truth, but it's in the form of a joke or a game, and you can't necessarily hear it. I believe that play may be our new subversive tactic for creating change in the world, and I actually think that's something that has to do with the Occupy movement and all of these movements happening out in the world where there's this festival atmosphere, this carnival atmosphere, this community atmosphere. We're not being strategic. We don't always know what we want, and yet there's a massive amount of change moving through. So the notion of the jester, both for play and for a subversive form of truth-speaking, is about creating a new world. The third archetype is the magician, and I want to talk about a particular part of the magician, which I think is about transmutation, not transformation, but transmutation, which is about ingesting the dark or the shadowy part of life and transmuting it through you and bringing good out into the world. So transforming bad into good, transmuting evil into positivity or negativity into positivity. And I think that's part of, if you're going to be the pioneer and the jester, you better plan to be the magician as well, because you're going to encounter dark places and difficult things. And the capacity that we have in ourselves to work that into positivity. And I want to give an example because I think this is a really difficult one to deal with. I've noticed a movement emerging of upcycling around the world. Upcyclers are people who transform waste into things of greater value. So they turn salvaged bicycles into irrigation pumps, and they take old plastic bags and they turn them into handbags and hats. And they take aluminum and they turn that into pocketbooks or small technologies, solar cookers, things like that. And the notion that when we look around the world and we see darkness and waste, what else is possible? The magician sees waste as an asset, sees darkness as something that can be turned into light, and has a vision for creating a different reality with what we normally see as not of value. So calling forth our magician in the times that we run into difficulty and darkness is going to enable us to bring forth the new world in the face of what seems impossible.